Hi, I'm Catherine Ayers-Wickenhauser from Direct Trust, and I'm so excited today to be joined by Travis White from Know2, who's recently been named one of our interoperability heroes. Travis, welcome. Will you introduce yourself, tell us more about your background and role?
Yeah, absolutely, Catherine. Thank you. So my name's Travis White. I serve as our Senior Vice President over Market Strategy and Adoption here at Know2.
Wonderful. And, we're in this interesting field in health IT where there's people and technology and how they intersect. And I know that you've been very vocal about those two pieces coming together, and you've talked about person-centered technology quite a bit. So, can you tell us more about what person-centered technology actually is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I guess I would start by saying I'm constantly motivated by that intersection. Whether or not, I believe I have said this internally and in other forums, but it is my firm belief that the focus should always be on the people the technology serves, period. It's a very short sentence, but it is, I think if we hold that as our true north, whenever we are talking about technology, whenever we're talking about standards or profiles, whatever it is, we have to keep the people at the center of what we do. So yeah, that's kind of that intersection for me, and that is how I approach everything. That's how I lead our team here on the Know2 side, and it's how Know2 as a company approaches interoperability in healthcare. So hopefully that helps.
It does. And you mentioned the standards and profiles, and we have like that technical component piece, but then there's also the way that people interact with technology, which we
Right.
commonly call workflow, right?
Yeah.
So, can you tell us more about your approach to workflow or your philosophies around workflow, and how does that come
Yeah.
together and pair with that person-centered technology piece?
Absolutely. So for me, it's all about abrasion or friction and in a workflow. When you think about the workflow experience, users should not have to go away from what they're doing to try to consume a new quote unquote solution. We really should be putting the technology in a position to equip them to do more right where they're at. And so allowing them to do those workflows in line where they're currently executing just equips them to do more, and at the end of the day, technology should constantly be striving to do that.
Sure. And so when you are trying to determine those solutions and think about how something is person-centered or how the workflow best meets the needs of the people actually using the technology, how do you go about doing that? What's your approach?
Yeah, it's a conversation. So one of the things I guide our team on, and even what we do here at Know2 is we take a deliberate effort and actually have those conversations. So instead of the geeks getting in a room and standing in a corner and saying this is the best thing that they're ever gonna even think of asking for, and we've never actually asked the providers, does this actually meet your need? Does this solve the problem? That's really what, to me, person-centered technology is all about. So coming from a background where working with a lot of different healthcare providers myself, it is important to me that we solicit that feedback, allow that user-shaped, design stage to unfold, so that as we have those conversations, we can inform the design. The solution that we actually end up bringing forward is something that's been guided by evidence, guided by conversation, and then at the end of the day, creates more attraction by the users because they've had a hand in it. They've actually contributed to the conversation. Stakeholders are involved, and as a result of that, they're able to then consume the technology without friction or without abrasion, because it, at the end of the day, is delighting them, and it's in the middle of a workflow that they needed at the end of the day.
And that's so key because obviously, if there is friction, or if you mentioned the technology is developed in a silo, it's not
Yeah,
going to be used. And then what's the point? And that
that's
doesn't
exactly
help
right.
progress us anywhere near our goal of interoperability and
Yeah.
frictionless data exchange. So I think that partnership that you're highlighting is so key. And I'm curious if you can describe for the people listening today, what does that look like in action? So can you provide a tangible example of how you brought these things together, of the person-centered technology, user needs, and all of those things, workflow, to actually have a solution and provide services back to someone where they didn't find friction, or they better adopted the solution because of those considerations around person-centered technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good example is the work that we've done. No2 has kind of taken a deliberate effort to really lean in on some of the signing workflows that burden healthcare. A lot of paperwork execution, everybody knows it. You show up to a clinic one time, and then 6 months later you show up and you got to fill out the same paperwork, or you got to do one thing over and over and over again. And you constantly are met with that question of, I feel like you should know this because I feel like I've done it 6 times. So that kind of reality, we leaned in, maximizing that, the technology that they had, and even the framework that exists with interoperability and some of the direct trust items in general. We leaned in and we removed the burden from that administrative group, the administrative staff or the clinicians, and even the patients that were having to sign the documentation. And so we as a result of those conversations, and as a result of the kind of evidence-based innovation, we took that forward into a solution that allows us to enable e-signing to occur within just trusted and secure signing platforms that are very well known, such as DocuSign, between two or more parties. And through No2's connector and the framework in general, the provider can actually stay in the workflow. They can send a direct secure message to request that signature, but the patient doesn't have to change their behavior at all. And they just do what they have done when they've bought a mortgage or signed off on a mortgage and bought a house, whatever the case may be. So what started as a direct secure message native for that provider inside of an EHR, and their workflow didn't change. And then the patient didn't have to change their experience, because at the end of the day, they received it through traditional channels like an email alert or an SMS alert on their phone, whatever it may be. And then once it's complete, we then automate that and put that completed document set back into the system of record as intended, cognizant of the type of document it is, as well as, the patient context in general. So all in all, eliminated friction on both sides of that equation. And that's why we're starting to see so much adoption of that in general, because it eliminates that friction that we've just been talking about.
Sure. And I really like this example too, because I think what you're highlighting, Travis, is it's not necessarily a new standard. It's using existing standards and,
right,
and approaching it and thinking about, okay, well, what exists and what are the problems that exist and how can we use what we already have? We talk about this with interoperability. There's been so much investment and effort into standards and profiles, et cetera, but how do we use the tools that we already have and pull them together and solve additional problems? And so I think the e-signing solution that you're discussing, definitely pulls those pieces together. And it's interesting to hear about the person-centered component about it as well.
Yeah, I'm proud of the work the team has done around that effort, but I'm also just proud of the reports that we get back from the users that have adopted it, even to the degree of, this has actually increased our efficiency so much in our practice, or in whatever, modality or care setting they're in. We've heard feedback come in and said, we've actually been able to increase the number of patients we're able to see because the amount of paperwork is now actually less. And so it does have an impact. And at the end of the day, technology should constantly be striving to do that, equipping across any care setting for the people to do more. And that's really at the heart of it. And so when you keep that at your center and you focus on person-centered tech, it allows for that kind of native byproduct, which is adoption. Like if a solution works, people will adopt it. If a solution sucks, they're not going to be interested in it. But
right.
But I think what interoperability constantly gets confused in is, and this may not be comfortable for some in our space, but I'm going to say it anyway, is we feel like we have to go create the new thing to get that adoption. And at the end of the day, adoption comes when people realize that it works in their workflow and gets them what they need. They don't care what the alphabet soup of interoperability represents. They don't care about all the different versions and technology standards and all this other stuff. They just want it to work. And they want this information to be where they need it, when they need it, and with whom they're providing care for. So it's just it's an instrumental element in maximizing the efficiency of communication in general. And that communication in healthcare is not equivalent to yet another new standard. It doesn't always have to be that. They're not mutually inclusive. Sometimes it is just, hey, maximize what you have. We have a ton of stuff. Our chief product officer loves to say what's on the truck, and I love him to death for it, but we have so much on the truck, and I'm going to use his words. There's a lot that we can do with what we have in the market. And there's a lot of technology that is sitting there idle, maybe even dusty in the corner, that we haven't even tapped into because of just education, and because people don't understand, that there's an opportunity here. And so they keep doing what they've been doing, and they suffer, and the workflows suffer, the patients suffer, everybody suffers. And it creates just this tremendous amount of abrasion in the experience when it doesn't have to. And you can tell, you can hear my passion building up in this, because it does fire me up, and I get a charge off of making a difference in this particular sector of healthcare. So
sure. And the best testimonial is hearing that a provider of healthcare, a clinician, can care for more patients. They can do their job more efficiently or better. Like you said, that's what drives us to be here. And sometimes we are so focused in kind of our unique areas, but hearing those testimonials, that's the best evangelism. That's the best education. And I love how you pulled on that thread too, that, now we have an education mission as well. What do we have? How do we further progress and let people know what exists and what they have access to, and show them the way, show that this is embedded in their workflow, and there are other things like that. So thank you for outlining the person-centered technology piece. I think that's really helpful for people to understand and think through and consider their own approach to interoperability, and what they're doing and how they might make it person-centered as well. So I'm curious, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts, words of wisdom that you would impart with the listeners today?
Yeah, I think final thoughts would be, first, I guess, my appreciation. I would just say thank you. Thank you so much for the nomination. Thank you. Truly blessed to be in healthcare, truly blessed to play a small part and contribute. But I am thankful to work alongside the wonderful team here at No2, the talented folks that I get to surround myself every day, equally passionate and equally driven to make a real difference and help make it all a reality. So appreciation entirely, and gratitude from my heart to you guys. And then second would just be extending my sincerest gratitude to every single care provider that is out there, every setting, wherever they're serving, whatever level they are serving, the impact that they make every single day matters. And our commitment, I guess, is probably how I would close it. Our commitment's unwavering, and we will make healthcare communication more effective, period.
Great. Well, Travis, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing your philosophies and words of wisdom. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Catherine. Appreciate you.
And to find more Interop Hero interviews like this, visit directtrust.org/Interop Hero.